I'm not chatting to you about anything. I'm going to listen and see what
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today is the day of the Seafarer, 25th of June, celebrated around the world. And we are all part of this community. So we want to say welcome to you. Welcome to the seafarers in the house. Welcome to the captains. You know less seafarers. You might be on shore, some of us, today. But mostly, welcome to everyone in the room, because as you sit here, in one way or another, you play a role in the maritime sector.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much. I think let me start off by just saying that if we look at the term seafarer, we're not only talking about the officers that goes to sea. We're talking about various roles that's needed on board ships, which will include your crew members, your agents, your cooks, and your officers. And so we have to have a holistic view of what is needed. I think to start a conversation, and maybe to poke your hand a little bit, to get the conversation started, it feels like sometimes when we look at what is needed in South Africa and how the training is at the moment, how we're doing and unemployment and everything else, we're only looking at the officer side. We're forgetting about the officers that's in the fishing industry, in the master coastal industry, along with those guys that's on the foreign-going vessels, your officer of the watch, your engineering officer of the watch, and those professions. So what we have, what our training group is doing, is we're trying to offer a solution to seafarers, not only for the foreign-going learners, but also those that work on the coastal voyages, like Mr. Julius has mentioned. And also on the fishing side. So if you have a look in South Africa, I'm not 100% sure on the numbers, but I think we've got well over 400 local fishing vessels that could serve as platforms for placement opportunities for learners to get them into the industry. And our number one major challenge before we even speak about employment is about getting the seafarer qualified. So if we look at the qualification, if you go back to STCW, it always speaks about that a person must be qualified, and the second part of it is should be experienced. So it's not enough just to be qualified. Qualification comes through teaching, but you also need the experience, and this experience is that part that you get on board the vessel, various types of vessels, of course. So, in teaching that experience, there's maybe something that we can look at apart from only looking at foreign-going vessels for training platforms, but also start to look at our local fleets, fishing vessels, coastal vessels, maybe Transnet, various vessels that we have that might not be able to fill all the requirements that a seafarer needs to go on board a foreign-going vessel, but at least we'll get them started. We sit with a number of learners that has gone through training programs, and they battle to find suitable placement to start off with. That's even before they get to their qualification. So if we can make use of more local vessels and get some sort of instruments in place that can assist us in that, that would be very helpful, first of all, so that we can find suitable placements for the learners and get them through their qualifications so they can qualify at the end of the day. The other statement I would like to make is, if we look at the qualification itself, theoretical education is, I would say, easy enough. It's laid down rules, it gets approved. You go through the program and you teach the content, and the learner then has got to be able to write an exam 6 months at the end of the day and qualify as such. What we're forgetting is that, and I don't think all the seafarers always sees that from a training point of view, is once you go to sea, the most important part is going to happen, and that's the onboard training. And I would like to ask the question is, how much control do we have about that onboard training processes? Is it still really effective? You've mentioned about new technology and automation. Does our training record books that we use still speak to those new things that we need in the industry? And is there better ways that we can possibly manage these programs to give the seafarer a better opportunity to gain the necessary experience and to qualify at the end of the day? As we know, everybody that's been at sea, the commercial pressure on a vessel, the operational needs are very high on the officers and the crew. In that high demand of what the seafarers should really deliver on board the vessel, the time that can actually be allocated to onboard training gets reduced. And maybe the seafarers doesn't always get what they are needed. So we are busy, I'm personally busy looking into this for the past couple of months, and I've started to develop a concept document on seafarer training, and specifically aimed at the onboard training phase. And I'm looking where institutions can be more involved in driving that onboard training phase. Because the training is not only the theoretical training, it's also the onboard training, and how institutions can get more involved in that onboard training phase to provide those opportunities to the learners that they desperately need to qualify at the end of the day. Yeah, so I don't want to. Do you want me to comment on the other stuff as well, or should I leave it to panelists to comment on? So I think yes, that from my point of view, from training and education, because that's where I'm from, it's those two things. It's should we not look at more local opportunities to get our seafarers trained first of all, and then through the whole training process, give the learners the opportunity to get the necessary experience before the qualification. So just as a little bit of an example. We've had 2 training groups that we've put through our system, and when we get to the theoretical component, it is not that they cannot cope with the theoretical components. You can clearly see it's a lack of onboard experience. So we're talking about learners that has never been at sea. They don't understand all the concepts because they've never seen it. So therefore, my last remark is, yes, we do need gullahs. Because if we can have a locally placed vessel where the learners can go through and get some sort of reference, in terms of reference of how certain things look, it will definitely make the education easier later on and much better, so that the learners at least understand what they're looking at when they do the education part.
Thanks so much.
Right, thank you. I'd like to thank SAMSA and DOT for organising these days and recognising seafarers in this way. I think it's a very important thing to do. I'm wearing 2 hats here. One is as President of the Society of Master Mariners in South Africa, and then also as Chairman of the Nordic Institute, the Southern Africa branch, which is the regional branch for the whole of Southern Africa. Just something to start off with. I think that I've had a lot of experience with youngsters joining the Society. We have a student membership capacity, and we have a lot of youngsters coming and joining us as student members in the Society of Master Mariners. And the one thing I always try and emphasize with them, and it's something I think is often very misunderstood, that seafaring is not a job, it's a way of life. It's a completely different way of life to any other job ashore. It's long times away from home, it's working with a small group in confined spaces, in remote areas. The ship's captain has a range of responsibilities. Effectively, he's running a small town where he's the mayor, the priest, the doctor, every sort of resource that you would need ashore, the ship's captain and between the ship captain and the other officers that are running that. So it's very important to understand that it's a way of life and it's not for everyone. Generally, there's a very high fallout rate. There's typically 80%, I would say 90% of kids starting off as a career at sea, they leave that environment and come ashore. Very small amount. I think in my own group, when I started years ago, probably some 30 of us in the deck officers in the days of Seafarers. I think there's 2 or 3 might have stayed at sea. Some of them went ashore for a while and then came back again. So got a very high rate of attrition. So that's a very important thing to do. And when we look at other seafarers that are South African qualified and at sea, the vast majority of them, other than the fishing industry, which is, I quite agree, is a very neglected part of what we consider. That's I'd like to touch on that as well. I've got quite a lot of background in the fishing industry. But the vast majority of our certificated officers are working either on foreign flag vessels or are working in foreign ports as port captains, pilots, port management, that sort of thing. And all of them have that employment by virtue of their South African Certificate of Competency. And that Certificate of Competency is only valid internationally because we appear on the IMO whitelist, which is the list of countries that is acceptable internationally. Their certificates are recognized internationally. And it's one of us as a society of master mariners, one of our most critical things that we are watching so closely is the importance that we stay on that whitelist. And there's a number of factors that affect our ability to stay on that whitelist. It involves our training institutions, it involves our ability to offer service at sea, it involves the input of SAMSA and the Department of Transport, and so there's many role players that can actually make or break our ability to stay on that IMO whitelist, and therefore allow us to continue to South Africans to be employed in the wide range of international opportunities that exist for them. But let's face it, I would guess for many years to come, we are not going to have a huge domestic shipping industry under the South African flag. It will come in time, but it will take time. And for the foreseeable future, in my opinion, we are totally dependent on foreign flag vessels and foreign employment for the vast majority of South African certificate holders. So that is a very important thing that we have to watch, that we are able to monitor the performance of our training institutions, SAMSA, these sorts of organizations that allow us to continue. Then in terms of the welfare of seafarers, I would sort of divide them into 2 things. Their mental welfare maybe and their physical welfare. I think mentally it's a stressful environment to work and live in at sea. There's a number of issues that we look at very closely as a society, things like piracy. It's very stressful going through a pirate area. There's been some terrible incidents and everybody is at risk in those environments. It's something that needs to be monitored and policies in place to help support seafarers in piracy type incidents. There's the other issue is the things that impact on seafarers, for example, the quality of their shore leave. The Maritime Labour Convention lays down requirements for the states to ensure that proper access is made for seafarers to get ashore in their times in port. These days, times in port are very short. They're often in remote parts of the port, far away from shops and places that seafarers want to visit, and it makes it very difficult. We've had a number of complaints from our members and from other visiting ships masters where the Department of Home Affairs, for example, has made it extremely difficult for seafarers to get ashore. In the old days, it was quite simple, and also if you look at the aircraft crew, it's very simple for them to come off the plane, quickly go through immigration, and they're into the town that the plane has arrived in, and there's no issues. Seafarers are treated completely different, almost like a second-class form of immigrant. And it's something that we have taken up with Home Affairs. In the old days, you could get ashore quite easily. You got perhaps a document when you arrived. The ship's crew list allowed the immigration authorities stamp that and allowed everybody to go ashore. Nowadays, in some of the ports, they're demanding that the guys go to the immigration office first. Each individual going ashore, let's go to immigration. And a port like Durban is a huge port. If they're on the far side of the port, it's a major taxi trip for a crew member to get from his ship to the immigration people, to give them that, hand in his passport, go ashore. When he comes back, he's got to go to the passport office, collect his passport, and get a taxi all the way back to where his ship is. And it's very expensive, and it's very reducing their time, their quality time ashore. So none of these sorts of issues that impact on the welfare of seafarers that things can be done about and need to be done. The issue of youngsters getting to sea, I agree with you, is a major problem. And the fishing industry is often ignored for this aspect. You know, the fishing industry, I've had quite a lot of experience on that. Even, for example, SAMSA, we were both living in Johnson for many years, understand the fishing industry well, and it's very misunderstood. You know, you take a trawler, goes to sea for, say, 30 days. Those guys on board are working 12 to 18 hours a day, 30 days continuous. They are on a ship that is operating in busy sea lanes, dragging nets across the seabed in a hazardous environment, working in conditions that would never be accepted ashore. And they are just going from full load to zero load all the time. There's a full-on refrigeration systems running. It's got everything a big ship would have, and maybe more. And we put our least qualified people in charge of those ships, which has always seemed strange to me. And so I have nothing but respect for fishermen. They don't perhaps have a great reputation ashore, but you go to sea with a trawler, you will change your opinion completely of a fisherman. They are amazing people. And we need to utilize that resource that we have in South Africa more effectively. Those are some of the issues that we as a society must manage, monitor and look at. We try and input on in legislation with the Merchant Shipping Act that's coming through. We've submitted comments on that. We get involved as well as in marine courts of inquiry if there's a collision or some incident that SAMSA has decided needs to be addressed in a formal marine inquiry. Then members of our society, if it's marine related as opposed to engineering related, two of our members are often invited to become assessors in a marine court of inquiry to support the magistrate who's running the inquiry and to provide the professional input that's needed. So there's a number of aspects that we would be involved in and continue to be. And as I say, we have our main purpose is to look after the professional interests of seafarers, particularly certificated seafarers, and I emphasize the professional interests. We're not a union, we look after their professional interests. And that takes constant monitoring and constant vigilance. Thank you.
Thank you, Selma. Morning, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity. I think Leon and Rob, they've raised very serious issues. My background is a naval background. I was in the joined as a rating and then later a naval combat officer, and subsequently ended up on the teaching and training and education side of the merchant navy. Still trying to figure out how that happened. However, I would like to say the biggest critique that I have for our industry is that there seems to be a disjuncture between what we say, what we do, and how we record it. One of the biggest changes to the international shipping management was the ISM code, the International Shipping Management Code, with the aim of safety, how our ships manage, and how can we ensure that when we pay lip service to say safety first, how do we actually change that into action? And when you say what you do, but you don't do as you say, and you record it for legal purposes, for courts of inquiry so that you can have evidence, and then there's a big problem. In terms of the questions being asked, what does it mean? What does seafarer well-being mean, and what do we do? I think first of all we need to create a space, one of which this is, a space for seafarers to be. I joined the Navy where it was enforced, comply now, complain later. You don't question, you do as you are told. Many a times this has led to accidents where seafarers don't question opening a hatch where there's a toxic or poisonous or explosive gas. They open it, there's an explosion, and then afterwards the inquiry finds that the captain gave instruction and it was followed. So I would like to instill in all our students question, but not for the purposes of defying authority, question with the intent to improve. It's not, I don't think we need to do more, by the way. I think what we are doing, this forum here today, having conferences and roadshows and all of that, I think we are doing enough, but I think we need to do it better. Accountability is something that, that needs to be enforced. So what if you have a wonderful Merchant Shipping Act? Those of you who have licenses, you know that there's a law in this country that says you cannot jump a red light. Okay? There's a law in this country that says you cannot drive more than 120 kilometers an hour. And I see many a times, in fact, yeah, we don't go there, but I see many a times people jumping red lights. I see many times drivers speeding. So it's not about what you have in place, it's about how well you can enforce it. And that is what I'd like to address. We do have the Agallas. It is a perfect opportunity to do what you are saying, providing training. We all train by using our senses. Sitting in class, having to sit and listen to someone lecture you on the rule of the road or on marine law, that's you sitting and listening. If you get to engage, for marine engineers more so even, if you get to actively engage, the learning becomes more meaningful. I'd like to support what Leon said in terms of onboard training. I teach the ISM code, I teach SECW. I can make you understand the concept and the legalities of it. However, the enforcement has to happen in a shipboard environment on board a ship. That is also lacking. We've come 1995 SDCW was all about knowledge. What must you know to become a marine engineer? What must you know to become a watchkeeper? Then we had, 1978, sorry, 1995 was all about, now with the knowledge, what's your skill, what must you be able to do? Because the document that SAMSA issues says certificate of competency. The certificate speaks to the legality. You need to have a certificate or certificated person as a watchkeeper. The competency speaks to skill. What can you do? And then 2010 came Manila, and Manila was all about, do we recognize that this individual with the skill and the knowledge is also a human being? And this person has got, Rob's mentioned it, mental wellness, physical wellness, there's a ton of it, financial wellness, all of social wellness, all of that. So I'd like to say, Salma, yes, we do need the Agallas, yes, we do need all these laws, but it's how we are enforcing them and who's accountable. When we say that we have seafarers sitting at home that's gone through the system and now they're sitting at home unemployed, who is taking that accountability? When we say we have a training ship, the Agallas, that can provide training for our students, and when that training fails, who is being held accountable? So I'd like to leave you with this. In higher education, the Council of Higher Education speaks about a golden thread. There needs to be a golden thread between how you teach, how your students learn, and how you assess. So it all needs to be linked. And what I'm saying is, in this industry, what is written in our laws, in our Merchant Shipping Act, in our STCW Convention, and what we're doing on board our ships and within our teaching and training institutions and within on board our ships, there has to be a link. If there's no link, you get a student that has gone through the system of learning, he understands and he knows what's supposed to happen, is exposed to an environment where many a times because of commercial pressure, there's no time to do it the right way. So I've heard instances of students saying, when you go for SAMSA orals, this is what you say, but this is how we actually do it. and there's a disjuncture. So, and I do this with my students, and I'd like to see if it's going to work today. I say to my students, and humor me, I'm all for active learning. I want you all to make a circle with your right hand quickly. Everybody, please join me. And this is about speed, because in the shipping industry, time is money, right? Yes. And I want you to quickly put the circle, and I'm trying to see all of you. On your chin, quickly on your chin. Is that your chin? And it's funny. It's funny, but this is exactly what happens in our industry. Our students come, they learn, they hear chin, they go to sea, they see everybody doing this. And 10 years later, they are training another cadet also to do this. So what we say, you heard me say chin, right? You know where your chin is. You understand it, but what did you do? You did what you saw me do. And that's in the other responsibility. Those people who are accountable, we need to do it properly. So I'd like to say we need the adults, we need to create a space for our seafarers to be able to raise their voices, but you need to do it a certain way. You can't, like I said, defy authority. And the SACWA perspective, I also want to say, as seafarers, we need to keep SAMSA accountable and say, SAMSA, you started this debate about what SACWA level is my certificate of competency and my achievement certificate and my master certificate valid. I want to go and study further now, but I'm getting to a UCT or CPUT, and they say, sorry, it's still not registered. So you sign off the vessel with a Master Mariner's or Certificate of Competency at management level, Class 1 Mariner, and you are told that on the SACWA system, it's not registered yet. I am in the Faculty of Engineering at CPUT. The engineering professional body is EXA, the Engineering Council of South Africa. And EXA is very clear where your level is, whether you're a technician, a technologist, a professional engineer, they're very clear on that. And granted, SAMSA is still a very young organization, but I feel that we all need to keep them accountable. And I'm not pointing fingers at SAMSA, make no mistake, because I also feel that SAMSA, and you are sitting here now, Dumisani, as the watchdog for South Africa, and we're charged with the responsibility of keeping our status of being on the white list. I also feel that SAMSA is under a lot of pressure and don't always get the recognition for the huge responsibility. You say 98% of world trade happens at sea. Then I want to ask them, why when you ask a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old, what do you want to become when you grow up? The doctors, the lawyers, when someone says, I want to be a mariner or seafarer, there's a pause like, what is that? So it's also how we perceive, it's a way of life. It's also how we perceive this industry. Do you know, as you are sitting here as a master mariner, you are a qualified professional. You are an expert in your field of work. Is that how you carry it to yourself? And is that how you perpetuate it to the world? If you're seafarers, many guys say, second engineer, been at sea for 10 years. And Klaus, we were discussing something, and he mentioned, my mom still doesn't know what I'm doing. It's about getting that debate started, and that's where I'd like to be.
Thank you very much. I think I'm getting excited. I think the issues that have been raised are the issues that we really need to engage and talk about. Because it is those issues that can make us really a proud maritime country. So, when we tackle the issue of the welfare of seafarers, therefore, I think they've just laid out the template of issues that we need to base our interaction on. I think one key issue that comes out is the issue of accountability. So we need to be able, as public representatives, stand up and be accountable for the results of the policies that we make, of the legislation that we make. Because if we do not become transparent and account, then we will not improve. I think the issues that have been raised indicate that we can only improve if we acknowledge the challenges that we have. Because it is in acknowledgement of those challenges that we have that we will find solutions to them. The status of our white list is so critical, is the cornerstone of what makes us a maritime country. Many countries who are on the white list spend money, resources, and everything that it takes for them to be retained on the white list. As South Africa, as the Department of Transport, as SAMSA, we cannot drop the ball. It's unacceptable, completely unacceptable that we can think of South Africa not being on the white list. So I think it is very important, this message that comes here, I think is a homework to us to go back and do an introspection and take actions that will ensure and guarantee to men and women who are serving on foreign ships that the certificates that they hold would not remain paper, but they would be certificates that would guarantee them a space to do what they love doing. The issue of experience equally cannot be compromised. Theoretical training that was encouraged by the view, it says training providers are generating an interest of knowing whether these cadets that they've produced really are given experience. It becomes even worse if you have got this young person coming from South Africa, working on board a foreign vessel where the majority, they can't even speak English well, and I think. But then this young person is there, so there's really no one going to teach you. There's no interest. I mean, we're just a number. It may end up just being a number that we were asked to provide to cadet space. Now we have provided. So the young person comes out of there with the notion. That's why then the concept, I underline the concept of a training vessel is relevant for us. I think we will need to move forward. That has to be retained. Indeed, I think we take the challenge that until we are able to, without shame, to mobilize and promote careers in the maritime sector. If in the family no one knows what we're doing, you can't blame them. But just think about this. They will not know what you are doing. They may end up being policymakers, so they will have no clue as to where priorities must be. So I think it's important that we need to, like we are doing now, this event, that we need to promote the maritime sector. I'm not sure, as we are here now, how many are tweeting of what is being discussed? How many are updating their social network? We must use it to promote our sector so that we can get better understood, so that we can be supported, so that this great work that seafarers are contributing to mankind would be recognized. I think 95% of our goods coming through ports are carried by US seafarers. I think we need to pride ourselves and look forward to building a truly remarkable maritime nation.
Good morning, Selma and panelists, and to the seafarers in the room or those associated with the seafarers. I think that one of the things is, if you're a seafarer, you always have stories to tell. And even as Captain Whitehead said, that it's a way of life. It's not just a career, it's a way of life. You need to be mentally strong as you progress through your career. I remember my first first walk on board a submarine vessel some 30 years ago. And the question was, what maak die chara hierso? Okay. And that can either break you or it can make you stronger. And so since then, I've spent 22 years with Transnet, with Port Authority in various roles, and now 8 years with SAMSA. So there's 30 years of experience, 30 years of stories. But one of the things all of the things that we need to make sure as seafarers is that we advocate for the well-being of seafarers. And some of these things we find that in various industries, such as the fishing industry, they can get to a point where they compromise safety. And there's some alarming stats. There's some 10,000 fishermen that lose their lives on an annual basis. So from what Ms. Lowe had mentioned, that what SAMSA asks you, and make sure if they ask you a question in a level 3 assessment, make sure the answer that you give them is the answer that you actually execute when you're out at sea. Because at the end of the day, it's your life. It is the people that are dependent on you to make sure that once you join a vessel that you come back and that you are safe. So from a fishing vessel perspective, make sure you don't succumb to the commercial pressures or get on board, sign up and do certain things. We've also found with the Maritime Authority in recent times, there's commercial pressure coming from yacht builders. And if you get a skipper and a crew that are not willing to undertake a voyage, they are then left to go home and then try and contract somebody else. So that is not advocating for well-being. So there's certain industry players that may be in the room you need to make sure and you wake up in terms of that, to make sure that it's safe. The well-being of the seafarer on board a vessel is not easy. You need to make sure that you're physically strong to carry out and execute the tasks that you need to do. So as ship owners, you need to make sure you have vessels of significant high standards, that you are able to have gymnasiums so that they are physically strong to execute the work. Another story of mine is you climb in a cargo hold of a container ship and you need to discharge reefers prior to that you need to go break the ice. So if you are pup, you're not going to be able to do that. So you need to be strong for that. As ship owners, you need to make sure that you keep your seafarers connected. And connectivity is by way of emails and internet and so forth that you make that safe for them. Surely, I think that's been touched on by the captain. The other one that recently that SAMSA had to execute is the lack of cooperation from shipmasters and seafarers, where we've needed to threaten the master that unless you get off the vessel, because that vessel is about to sink, we are going to send the SAPS and arrest you. So it talks about the decriminalization of seafarers, to make sure that you cooperate with the authorities in doing that. Because if you don't cooperate with them, we find of certain instances where seafarers are locked up and the captains are put into prison and they throw away the key. So those are the things that have impact on that. The other one, money is a driver for everyone. So you need to make sure that your staff are paid and all the seafarers are properly paid. And when it comes for them to be repatriated, that you make proper arrangements for them to be done and take them back to the place of sign-on. At the end of the day, advocate for well-being and the mental health of the seafarer is one that is always of utmost importance. Thank you.